Alrighty, shall we get started? So welcome, this is your second workshop for V10. We will be continuing these throughout the year. We have obviously the new V10 stuff in the next couple of sessions, and then we'll get back to some bigger projects and fun stuff like that. I'm also in the process of updating the videos in the training lounge. So remember, all of this is included in your 3Design care. We'll have a lot more of that coming. I want to get those videos updated so they work with the V10. Plus, we get to use the new tools and kind of optimize the processes. So you'll see those added as they're created. So today we're focusing on the 20 new tools. You can find the new tools because they were all created using the new Super Action interface. So they have the little Super Action icon in the corners. So there are 20 of them. Some of them I'm sure you've already figured out. They're a little self-explanatory, but I'll go through all of them. Some are, you might need some examples. So let's just jump in and start on that. So we're going to start with, there are 6 new tools in the solid workbench. And the first one we're going to look at is the pyramid. So this is a new solid type that we didn't have before. And pyramids, you've probably, if you've tried to create them using geometry and math, they're not the simplest objects. So it's nice that we have one where we can just click the tool and it creates the pyramid for you. So we programmed in here the number of sides. So obviously, if you go past 4 sides, it's not really a pyramid anymore. So you could use this for these geodesic shapes as well. Not geodesic, that'd be some sort of hedron. Anyway, skip the geometry lesson. So you have your pyramid shape. Very simple to use. It does have a built-in translate gizmo. So if you click on move, rotate, or scale, or any of the fields, that will show the gizmo here in the scene. So you can use it just like the regular move, rotate, scale. Including the step function if you want to fine tune how much you're moving things. I want to move 1/10 of a millimeter. It'll snap to that. Oh. Okay. And a reset so you don't have to launch the tool all over if you make a mistake. So very basic one, but we'll start there. Okay. The second one we're going to look at is the empty sphere. So this is basically a sphere with some Booleans programmed into it so that it'll automatically hollow it out. So of course, right now it looks like a sphere. We can set the thickness of the walls of the sphere. And again, that has a move and size. That's the basic transform gizmos from the sphere that was created here. So it doesn't have the full move, rotate, scale like the other one, but of course you can validate this and add that to it. Of course, the material and everything is in here. But if we validate that, I could freeze it here and you might be able to see that you can see the walls there, but to make it even easier to see, I will go ahead and just do a cut and delete on it. And you can see that it is a hollowed out sphere. Okay. So more of a shortcut if you need to hollow that out. Okay. So the next one we're going to look at is super extrusion. So for that, we're going to need a shape. I don't know what that is, but that'll work. And basically, it's a little bit like piping, but instead of piping where you need to decide what kind of profile you want and a bunch of settings, sometimes you just want to extrude an outline of something. So we simply take the curve, do the super extrusion, and it gives us that, a hollowed out outline of our extrusion, the walls here. And of course, we can set the height of the walls. Now this one doesn't update live. It takes a little long to calculate if your curves get complicated. So you have the preview eye here. where you can recompute right here in the tool. So we can see it update. And you can do an offset, which would be how much of the width is. Be very careful with that, like any kind of sweep or piping or anything. If you get too wide in these narrower corners, it's going to start overlapping itself. So be careful with that, of course. And then there is a both sides option. So you can have it on both sides of the curve. And I think what's going on with that little line? Let me validate that. Okay, that was just a display. Interesting. Okay, so that's super extrusion, another simple one. And it's, again, a lot of these tools are shortcuts. Anything that we could do over and over that we want to simplify the process can now be programmed into a tool. Later on, when we get to the super action workshops, we'll talk about how to start programming these. And they can be as simple as this, or they can be really complex. But if you can build it and it has a history in the tree, we can recreate that with the super action interface. All right, next up I have super sweep. So this one's a little more involved with the setup. Let's give you a nice example here. I'm going to do a classic flower petal. Probably familiar with this from the early beginner training. And we'll go ahead and sweep that real quick. Okay. While we're in here, I will talk about some of the known issues, and we'll talk about more at the end too. The update is coming very soon. But you may have noticed your defaults for sweeping when you switch between 2 and 3 rails. The alignments are a little different, and that's because of the new keep last field values where you can keep those. Well, obviously a 1, 2, and 3 rail sweep and a 4 rail sweep are going to have different alignments. So for now, be sure to check your alignment. If you go to sweep and it looks funny, part of your section is way outside of the shape, that's because of the alignment. So don't forget that third tab. Check your effect for the rotation and your alignment. But yeah, those defaults are being updated in the update. So let me add my section. Okay. Oh, and here's an example right there. So the last sweep I did was a 3 row sweep, so it looks a little different. That's going to be left to right to keep them in between the two. And I do need a rotation. Okay. And if I keep that, if I do another 2 rail sweep, I only have to change the alignment if I switch to a different type of sweep. So. All right, so there's my little petal. I forgot my scale on height. Take care of that tip at the end. Okay, so what I want to do is get some curves on here. I think the fastest way to do that, instead of drawing a bunch and projecting them, for now, I'll use a magnet. And we're going to do kind of the stem pattern right up the middle. Validate that, and I'm going to hit my repeat key so I can just do another one. And already some more examples of how quickly we could do things now with the new interface and features. All right, so got my my curves here. Now, of course, we could multi-pipe this, but as you're probably aware, multi-pipe doesn't work on all curves. Sometimes you just want to do a regular sweep, and to regular sweep these, I would have to select this curve, click the sweep, then select the profile, go through the settings, etc. I want to do all of these at once with the exact same sweep settings. So we're going to, let me make sure I have a profile here. Do kind of a little thin piece like that. Okay. And then what I could do quickly is select all my magnet curves. If I select the top one and then this time hold Shift instead of Control, I can select that entire list. And then I'm going to Control select my section. If you have all your open curves and your closed curves selected, you can just launch the tool and you don't have to plug anything in. So we'll do our super sweep. And you can see up here in the corner, it's going to process all those sweeps really quickly as one step. That's the basics of it. You'll see in the example video some other cool tricks you can do doing any kind of complex geometric patterns and things like that where you want to sweep all the sides of it automatically. It works for things like that as well. So that is super sweep. Again, just a nice shortcut. Okay. Okay, next up we have super bulge. Okay, so with super bulge, when you get into bulge on complex shapes, you have to know a little bit about surface controls and deleting the surface and playing around with the settings and hope that it all matches up and welds back together. So basically, we've done all of those more complicated steps into a new version of bulge. So let's say this will be just an extrusion. Let me, yeah, we'll do an extrusion. This could be a sweep, anything that kind of has a capped end on it and you want to round it off or bulge the top of it. So again, the old-fashioned way would be to delete the surface, bulge it, play around with the settings, hope it matches up. This one, we just need a curve to follow. So I'm going to go down here and extract that entire cap. So I get the entire edge around it and select that curve and launch the super bulge. Okay, now this will happen. Let me hide my piece here. Depending on the curve direction, your bulge may go the opposite way. So this is an easy fix. If I just click on my move tool here and preview that, we can just change where that's going. And you can see this is basically done with a more complex loft instead of a bulge. So we get the right effect, and it works a lot better on some of these more complex shapes that have a lot of internal angles and things like that. So we validate that and bring back my extrusion. And of course, I can just simply Boolean those together. And you saw quickly Booleaned, no problems there. Okay, and then the very last one in the solid bench here is going to be plane around a point. So this just gives us a new kind of quick shortcut to create a plane, giving us a different tool to manipulate it, linking it to the center point of the screen. So for example, I have my signet ring here, or whatever type of ring, and I want to get a plane over here so that I can project some curves. So I could build a plane that's only linked to, the 0 point or another plane, but I want this to be just quickly freestanding plane, and I want to be able to rotate it around to that area that I want. So simply just click on this new plane here, the plane around point, and it creates the plane. It has a gizmo built in here. Unfortunately, with these transform tools, when we include them in a tool like this, just like if we were to use the move, rotate, scale, you're going to have all 3 options: move, rotate, scale. So you not always will use the scale portion. So keep that in mind with some of these tools. So this one, I'm not going to use the scale. It's not really going to affect it much. But I can use the move portion, and I'm not going to use the rotations either, so that I can move this, and you can see that it rotates around that center point. And of course, I can drag it out here further. And the nice thing about this is we get this nice little line showing us how that is lined up to the center of my item or the center of the ring. So if I'm doing projections, things like that, I can kind of get a better idea of where the center of this plane is. Obviously, if I wanted to link it to the support, you can use plane on support, but this is for if you want to do projections and things like that. It does have the plane options built in here, so you can flip the plane if needed, if it's backwards. And the new plane color option is in there, as well as its transparency. So you can quickly label these planes as well as you're going and rename them. So that's the new plane for point. That just gives us a different way to create a plane with some different ideas of where you would use that. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the jeweler's bench. And this is where we're going to find 16 more new tools. A lot of these are going to be builders and jewelry ring builders and things like that. Starting with ring from object. This one's pretty simple. We start with an object and give you the most basic example, but this could be other object types, of course. I'm just going to do a little sphere. And if I select that and do ring from object, really quickly, it's going to repeat that object. It's going to add my ring size builder. Change our ring size. Again, this one has a lot of operations, so we have it not updating automatically. You'll hit the preview. You see that it does Boolean everything for you, cuts out the center ring. So again, something I could have done, obviously, by building a ring size builder and then lining up the sphere and repeating it, and a whole bunch of steps. This does it all at once. There is a move, rotate, scale in here. So if we do that, you can see that's on the original object that I had loaded in here. So if we hide it, the original, we can see what I'm doing here on the one that we're manipulating for the tool. And maybe I want to squish it and do that. And then now that it's thinner, I might want to adjust my reference space. And we'll go back to rotate here and maybe turn this way. Just eyeballing it, I could have locked that. And update that. Okay. And if you, old video, I think it's a V8 video at this point, old scalloped ring, if you remember the whole process and steps to create that, and you can see I just did that in a few minutes with this setup here. That's one of my favorite new ones there. We're going to go on to the wedding band. This is a simple one, but wedding bands are so simple. We create them over and over and over, and even that is a few steps where we just want a simple square or round band. So we're going to do that with the new wedding band tool. And yeah, one step, it's built my ring size, it's swept it, it's done all the things. It's got some objects built in. So if you want a comfort fit, if you want some half rounds, if you want a half round with the comfort fit, a lot of just your basics are plugged in here. Now, and of course, there is a custom option, which will give you a hand to pick your curves. It does not work with the library, unfortunately. So if you want to use a library curve, be sure you pull that in either in sketch mode if you want to modify it, or in the solid mode. Pull that in and give yourself a few options if you want, and then load those up. As you start to learn how to build super actions, you can obviously make your own and have your favorite curves, the ones you use over and over, as part of the interface here. So this is a good simple one to get you started. There is a width and a height. It's not done using the manipulator because it's using the sweeping functions. So you will type those in, but if I want a 6mm wide band, that updates. And if I want it to be 1.5 thickness, And again, just a few clicks, we can create those really mundane things that we do over and over with just one simple tool. Okay. Next one we have is the Palmette. This one it builds the curve for us, and it is a known issue. You've probably run into this. If you try to sweep it, it breaks, and I'll show you why. So I do have a fix for that, and it is fixed in the 10.1 that's coming. So, but otherwise, it's simple to use. You click on it, and it draws your curve. So this is going to give you your Palmette is what they call them over in France. We usually call this a cathedral type setting, anything that has a kind of raised open top to it. Again, has your ring size here. And if you click on the top ending point, any of the fields, that will open up the manipulators. So you can adjust. Okay. And the angle as well. Other than that, it's a really simple tool. It just gives us a quicker way of creating this and having it linked to the finger size. To do that manually, I would have to create the finger size, which is just a circle, and then get my curve, and then using the outline and a bunch of other tricks, getting it all lined up so that it matches the finger size, where this one does all of those complex steps for you. Okay. So again, like I said, if you go and select this and you try to sweep it, it's going to break, and that's because it's currently drawing two curves. It's not supposed to do that. It's drawing two and it's grouping them. So if you hover over, you see the bounding boxes. We know that it's a group. So the fix for now, until we get the 10.1 in a few weeks, we're going to just go over here and ungroup and select and delete one of the curves. And now I can sweep. Like I would normally. Okay, so that's the cathedral or Palmettes. I'll be updating some of the translations on these tools for you as well for the English version. That'll be coming soon. Okay, that's going to bring us to 3D outline. This is a fun one, and this is one that took me a little time to figure out too until I saw it. We're going to take a 3D curve, and that's going to be, let's say I'm going to take a circle. I'm just going to line that up straight up and down. And we're going to convert that to a NURBS because I want to adjust its point. So I'll use my drag tool, and we're going to make it a 3D curve. Okay, so what this tool is going to do, again, is link this to a ring size. So you can think of it like as your ring outline, but a 3D version of it. And again, that's a bunch of steps to get it to work manually. You have to link it with the outline and then using the shank tool to complete it, and it becomes a bunch of steps. So again, this is just programmed to do all those steps for you. And we do our contour 3D or 3D outline, and you can see it's going to rebuild the curve, but it's linking it to my ring size. Our offsets are here. They're all set at 0, 0, 0, so it's exact same shape as your curve, but you can use these offsets if you want to kind of manipulate the shape. Or you can use the handles, just like if we were using the regular outline tool. But I want this to be my inside ring sweep rail, so I'll leave that where it's at. You can also use this to move it to the other side of the plane. That's good if you're going to be, you can run this twice for setting up like a 2-rail sweep with this as well. But I'll just use the 1 rail. Show you a nice example of this. I'm going to go ahead and sweep this with a sweeping wizard. Give it a section. Okay, now this is a 3D curve, so it's not always going to be lined up to the plane like I want, but luckily with the sweeping wizard, that's an easy fix. We'll just do a -90. And I may decide to move it too, but let's go ahead and sweep it. Okay, and I'd probably want multiple sections here so it doesn't turn on the bottom side, but for this example, I might want to mirror on the OXZ. And this is going to get us quicker to our split shanks. And the beauty of our split shanks with the updates to the hyper-threading with the engine, you can Boolean crazy stuff like this, no problem. So from here, I can go in and adjust my shapes, get these to blend a little better, and great way to do your split shanks. Okay. Brings us to super facet or a faceted ring. And again, if you've tried to create these from scratch, I do have a 3-shaper version of this. If you wanted to do something more custom and manipulating using the points, that's a great one. But sometimes we just want a simple faceted ring. You see all these all over the place nowadays. One click, it is built. We have our faceted design, and you can change the number of sides here, which is basically the overall polygon shape of this, which is going to influence how many or how small these facets are. Like so. Of course, it does have the ring size, and then this is using the top plane in part of its construction. And in this case, if I move that top plane, it's going to change the thickness of the ring. Okay. Doesn't get simpler than that for that one. Just click it, adjust a few things, faceted ring. Beautiful. All right, offset pave. This one's going to require a little setup as well. So this is a fun one. I want to just take a sphere, and this is a surface-based tool. So we do need to get the surface, whether that is extracting the surface or copying the surface or creating it from a surface originally, but I want to create it from this sphere. So I will start with my sphere, and I'm gonna maybe squish it a little bit. And we make that really quick and easy. But before I do that, I need to worry about seams. Remember, seams are on all objects. I know a sphere has a seam going around the object around this y-axis here. So let me undo that. So the fix for that is I want to turn this 90 degrees so that that seam is going around the horizontal axis there. But if you don't know that, how do I know, where those seams are? And the old-fashioned way, of course, would be to use one of our surface tools that displays the topography. And now I can see, okay, there's that seam. But I can't see that while I'm rotating it. So I showed you in the last workshop, you have the toggle topology. That's going to allow me to see the topology as I'm working here. So now I'm going to add my move, rotate, scale, and I know where that seam is. It doesn't always display what you're working. Sometimes it does. But I know where it is now, so I just need to do my -90 when I validate that. Yeah, sometimes it turns it off. Now, if you turn it back on and then do it, yeah, it's hit or miss. I'll have to see about that if there's a fix for that. Let me cancel that. But anyway, it's much quicker, easier if I can see where it is to begin with, and now you can just do that from the right click, and you don't have to actually copy any kind of faces ahead of time. But now that I've gotten that, I will go ahead and copy the face because this is the surface I want to base my pave on. Oh, yeah, I was going to squish that a little bit. No problem. History. Didn't have to turn it on, just do it. going to select that surface, select that surface. We're going to do our pave. So it does require a pave, a list of positions first, and that could be any kind of list position, but this makes sense to use with a pave. I'm going to set up just my frontiers, and we are going to be covering this tool more in depth in the next session, so you'll get to see all this. But we're just using the features you already know, the test frontiers, and I want to do an axis symmetry. And that's going to be around the OZ, and maybe 5 copies. So those are old features. And then we're going to do our listed positions. I need to do stone like so. I'm just gonna do that in the center, and then, oh yeah, with symmetry, did I turn my frontiers on? That's okay, I'll just line them up here. See if I can fit 6 in there. All right, so maybe I want something like that for my pave. Okay, so if I select the pave and the surface, I can then launch my tool, which is here in the jeweling section. Okay, now hide that surface so you can see what it's creating for us. It's basically creating a shape out of the pave as opposed to starting with, I mean, obviously we started with a base shape, but to get this kind of piece here based on my positions as opposed to the other way around where I'd have to kind of figure out the piece and hope that my stones are going to fit. So this gets my stones exactly where I want them, and then we build that shape to it. So it's great for all kinds of things you can do, you know, if you want to build up a plate on top of another surface, anything like that. So from here, it does work with, I think I validated it too quickly, or you do have your scale factor. So that's going to be how much outside of your shapes. Of course, if I get too small, we're going to have some gaps, but that could give me some interesting effects too if I spread these stones out further. But getting the amount there, and then your shell thickness, of course, is how thick the whole piece is going to be. And that's pretty much it there. And then, of course, from there, we can set our stones. Jeweling. And depending on what I'm doing with it, I might set them in. If I'm doing some flush setting, I set them up higher like this. If I want to quickly add some pave prongs around them, whatever we're gonna do. But I'm just gonna finish this one up with some multi-cutters. I'll use the default and subtract. Now, you see I might have done that on a ring size builder on the top plane, and then I can build some pieces under here and do a really cool setting from it. All kinds of things you could do with that. And much easier with the tool, doing all the complex steps for you. Okay. Barrette setting. This is going to be more of a eternity band style setting. I'll get that translated a little better. See if I remember the steps. Let's see. Yeah, I need the shape that I'm going to be putting between my stones. That's really all I need. I'm going to take we'll do kind of like a bar setting or barrette, and build that up. I'm going to fillet it so it's nice and rounded, and make sure that's centered. And then simply take that, and it's going to build the rest for me. Barrette setting. Okay. Now, of course, I built that on top of the plane, so it's putting that to the girdle level, just like it would normally. But the cool thing is I can just go here and click on any of the move, rotate, or scale portion of this. It'll give you my manipulator, so I could do that mathematically, or just come in here and drag that down. And I can see it's little bigger than I thought it was going to be. So again, I don't have to go back and redo the original because it's copying that for me with the manipulator built in. Just do all that right here. Preview will update, of course. The rest of this is you can determine how you want your belts, if you want multiple belts, if you want to change the shape of those belts, that's all in here. I use this, the shape of the stone can be any of your defaults, or you can link this to an existing stone as well. Okay. Obviously, if you change the stone after you launch it, you'll have to play with your spacing, reference, etc. Where's my belts and claws? There's a lot programmed in this one. You can see, so you just have to go through the different sections. Here's where we can change the dimension of my stone. And then, yeah, if you want to modify the belts, so maybe I don't want that round with the barrette, so we'll update that. And they need to be a little thicker. And so on and so forth. Put that back to brilliant here. There we go. Okay. What I like to do is make sure the inside matches all evenly to the finger size. So I'll just do a trim to finger size. This is another one of those in older versions. I'd be a little leery about a huge Boolean like this with all these parts and trying to trim it with one step. But let's see how V10 handles it. First thing is it is a group and your stones were created in that same group. So don't Boolean it with the stones in there. I mean, you can if you really want to. We're just going to do in the group section, filter by type or material will work in this case because there are two different types of items, stones and metals, or stones and objects, and then materials are different. If I do material though, that's going to separate all of the other materials too. So I'll do type, and now my stones are one group, and now I can take this group and we'll Boolean it together. And do my trim to finger size. So I got my little bars going in too far. Okay. I didn't give myself much to trim from there, but let's say I need to do that. I moved my belts up too high. So those should be inside the ring. But we'll go ahead and trim it. It's going to take a little while to calculate, but so far it's worked every time for me. And just like that. Okay, let me show you another quick example of where I would use this tool for more of a traditional eternity style thing. And I'm going to do a prong. And this could be just a simple prong like this, or build your claws however you like. And I'm going to mirror that to the other side. And then go ahead and group those. But this does work on groups as well as just a single object. They do need to be grouped first, so it plugs it in as one piece. And then launch your Barrette tool. And we have our shared prong style setting. And again, I didn't have to worry about lining the original prongs up. I just built them the simple, quick way because I can just jump in here and fix them. Like that. And now I don't want to scale the entire group. So if my scaling's off, here's where I would go in my history. It's part of the group, just my original prong, and we'll give it a little more thickness and update that. And then of course, play with the belts, whether I want one or two, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the eternity band or Barrette setting. Okay. Solitaire. This one's pretty basic solitaire, but again, if you just need a simple basic solitaire to get you started, I want to say I need, yeah, just the stone. Could be any shape size stone, but we'll just start with a simple round stone. And this is going to build this group of pieces for you. So it has your finger size built, the stone with a couple of belts. And then of course the belts can be adjusted. It is a very basic setup. It's not using the customizable belts, but you can adjust the heights and the thickness, etc. Nothing too much on that one. Okay, next up we have a couple of border tools for doing mill grain or rope type borders. So I'm going to just give a simple example of that. These work with a curve, and that curve can be extracted, it can be projected, it can be a magnet curve, however you get your curves on there, just like if you were doing mill grain any other time. I'm going to do I'm going to extract this border here, that way I can bring my mill grain in from the edge a little bit. Actually, I'll bring it in even further so we can do my rope on the same one. All right, so you take your curve, however you got it on there, you click the tool. It's another simple one. Well, here's the rope. It's just repeating objects. They've lined it up so that, or we've lined it up so that it will start to match automatically for you. Of course, you can adjust the rotations. It's gonna be a little slow if I do it that way, but I can change the step. Adjust your spacing, play around with them. If you're doing, larger, bigger pieces, you may want to play with those. Maybe I want to thicken them up a little bit or make them longer. So we get some quick rope borders. And of course, the mill grain is even easier. We take that curve and click on mill grain. And just like we teach how to do these simple sphere mill grains, going to just do all that for one quick step for you. And of course, you can change the size of your spheres and the spacing. You can have these scale if you want them to scale as you go through the curve, etc. Again, just a shortcut for you. All right. Next up, we have another interesting one, this super sector, or I don't know what we're going to call that exactly. We want to change the name. Circle sector. It's using a circle sector, but it's automatically going to repeat your shape that you're using your circle sectors on. Circle sectors are complex tools, and not a lot of people mess with them. So this one's going to make it a little easier. I just want to take an object, and this isn't necessarily for a ring, but I want it to go around an axis. So maybe I'm putting it onto a wedding band or something. Let's say a pyramid. I'm going to do a four-sided pyramid like so. Now select that, and much like the ring from object, you just select the tool and it's going to repeat it and automatically do your spacing and everything based on your number of copies. So you can make very dangerous rings with this. Obviously, we use other shapes, things like that, and it does have one other thing is the offset. So that's how much. So if you're putting this onto a band that you've already swept around the same finger size, you can offset this so that it is sitting into the surface of the outside of your band instead of starting from the center. And it does not have a manipulator for the shape, but it is parametric. So I can use my regular manipulator if I want to modify the scale or rotation or size of these. Okay. So this is kind of a simplified version of the ring from object. It doesn't create the band or the ring from it. It just allows you to repeat these steps or these shapes really quickly. So you could use it for all kinds of things going around a band. And it's a lot of tools. Charm. All righty. I broke it. That's the first. Luckily, it starts up really quickly now. Too much stuff running now. All right. Charms. Okay, simple way to create little shapes and turn them into little charm pieces. Okay, so included some built-in shapes. Obviously, you can throw in your custom shapes as well. And it creates these. Now, when you can manipulate this transform gizmo or your manipulator, so you can scale and move them around and rotate as needed. And then when you validate these, you'll notice it is a group. So it is just two pieces that are mirrored. You will have to Boolean them if you want it to be solid. But I think we left that as two pieces in case you wanted to go ahead and ungroup them and maybe cut out some of the inside or do something else to them if you're doing locket style charms or something. But by default, they do need to be Boolean together. And I did want to show you if I'm doing this from a custom object, what'll happen sometimes. Again, because we don't have control over the direction these curves were drawn, they were all drawn the same direction, of course. And so sometimes it will do the same thing as the one I showed you earlier, where it might come in inside out or upside down. I'm do custom, and you can see that it worked fine. It mirrored it, everything's fine, but my surface got flipped inside out. So I'll show you how to fix that. I'm going to just simply ungroup. And I'm just going to delete the other half because I can just work on one and then remirror it. Simply just reverse surface orientation. And then redo my mirror. So if you run into that with a backwards curve, you could easily fix it this way. Or you can try to play around with the curve. That curve direction is not always as simple as reversing the curve. It's the normal direction of the curve that got flipped. So luckily that's easy to fix. And we got two more, bales. Okay, so this is another, sometimes you just want a simple bale. You don't want to draw a bunch of curves and sweep. You just need a basic bale to throw in there. You can always pull some from the library. Other times though, you just want to be able to manipulate a little more than what we have in the library. So obviously you build your piece first and then you simply click here and it starts creating your bale. So this one's a little confusing because it's based on a bunch of arcs. And I'm not sure about the labels here, but we'll start with this first one here. If I click on where's my manipulator here? Oh, okay, I don't have one on that side. Okay, so we'll start here. So you can see what I'm manipulating is this area here. And again, you have the full controls, but really all I'm looking to do is to scale that curve to shape this. I still have some problems with this one. There's the left side. Yeah, it's not updating. This part's easier though. If you wanted to do like a tapered one, we can just widen the sections that this is created from. And it's not updating for some reason. I think my computer is hating because I'm doing all this recording and this was working fine earlier. So that's the basics of it though. You can manipulate the size of the arcs on either side and the section on the top and the bottom half. And you're just gonna move or scale those depending on which side you're working from. Let's see if I can. Oh, there we go. At least it's updating. Okay, so you can shape it that direction, and that's going to be the left or the right side, and then your top or bottom section. So this is the top section. It's going to change the thickness on that end. Okay. And you get your basic bells. And of course, you can change the section shapes using some simple shapes built in or your custom ones as well. Okay. And then finally, the Bangle. So Bangle, if you've ever created one, you can create it from a ring size using custom size for millimeters and then set up all that fun stuff. Or we've done that for you with a little builder here. So you can choose your major and minor radius. Your major radius is going to be the width of your bangle if you're doing an oval. Minor is going to be the top to bottom of it. So, okay. And if you don't want an oval, just make your width and major and minor the same size. Okay. There is an opening angle built in here. So if you want a certain amount of opening for the bottom of the bangle, doing more of a one size fits all approach, you can do that with a degree here, or you can see the circle sector if you want to just visually open it up. Okay. Then from there, you have two sections, the top shape and the bottom shape, and you can mix and match. We have, again, your basic shapes built in or use your custom shapes. I think a square gets a little weird with the settings I have, so maybe we'll do, oh, I have two different shapes. There you go. Don't forget, there's mix and match there. So if you want the same on both sides, especially with squares, they may not blend. But you can change the height and the width for each half individually as well. So if you're doing any kind of tapering and whatnot. So again, quicker way to get these simple Bangle shapes with one tool.